Hi, my name is Mikael Peterson. I'm a student here at JTech, and I'm here to talk to you about the torque converter. Now, the torque converter basically implies what it does. It converts torque. It does it by multiplying it, and it also shifts the gears of an automatic transmission. And this happens because of the process hydrocoupling. Hydrocoupling involved has three stages involved in it. The first one is stalling, the second one is acceleration, and the third one is coupling. Once all those three stages have have been together and worked, then you'll have your torque converter working. Okay, before we start talking about the hydrocoupling process, we have to talk about the three important parts in this process that's taking place. So the first part is the impeller, the second part is the turbine, and the third part is the stator. These three parts play a crucial role in the torque converter, and we're going to talk about them. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the impeller. The impeller is the start of the whole hydrocoupling process. It's a housing and it has the fins inside of it. So basically, it spins with the engine because it's attached to the engine, but it's turned towards the transmission. So the fluid is actually sitting inside of it, and as it's sitting inside of it, is getting rotated by the engine, creating a rotary flow for the fluid, which sprays outward towards the engine. Okay, so the second part we'll be talking about is the turbine. Now the turbine sits closer. It sits close to the impeller, but it's not on the actual impeller itself, and it's turned towards the engine. Now the turbine turns too, but it's not going to turn at the same speed as the engine until it gets to the about the third stage. That's when it'll start turning about the same speed as the engine. But during this, the turbine is also spinning and is pushing the oil outwards too, back to the impeller, and it just goes back and forth from the impeller to the turbine. Last part we're going to talk about is the stator. Now the stator is very important because this is how the fluid actually starts multiplying torque. So the stator basically has fins like just like the turbine and the impeller, but it only spins one way. And because of this spinning one way, it creates a vortex flow, which multiplies torque and uses that for power. Okay, so another component we talk about is the lockup clutch assembly. No, the clutch assembly basically helps with slippage that goes on with the turbine and the impeller. So it basically has a backing plate, a piston, and a friction disc to help eliminate slippage that's going on while the torque converter is turning. Okay, so now that we know about the important components involved in this in hydrocoupling, let's talk about the actual process of hydrocoupling. We first begin with stalling. Stalling basically just starts out with the impeller just free spinning at idle speed, and when as it's spinning at that idle speed, it's creating the rotary flow of the fluids going outwards to the turbine, getting ready to start up the second phase, which is acceleration. Okay, so the second phase acceleration basically is when the turbine is spinning with the impeller, but the impeller is spinning faster than the turbine right now, and but the it creates that rotary flow still from the impeller to the turbine, and it keeps going back and forth, creating a little coupling process that's about to happen. So once we're done with acceleration, then we move to the last stage, which is coupling, and that involves all three of them. But this is when the stator comes into play. So as your impeller and your turbine are spinning, they are getting close to spinning at the same speed, but they'll never reach the same speed. So once they're spinning and that fluid is going back and forth to each one, they'll finally go through the stator, which basically makes a vortex flow, which multiplies your torque and creates all your power. Now during this coupling process, you're at a 1-to-1 ratio in your with your transmission, and basically you're at a cruising speed, and you can shift gears. Okay, so on your last phase of the hydrocoupling process, you'll have a 1-to-1 ratio, and as it has a 1-to-1 ratio, the torque converter will basically lock up, and the lockup is when the impeller, the turbine, and the stator have built enough RPM and are spinning at that 1-to-1 ratio, but they will only have a 90% maximum efficiency because it has slippage. But that's why we have the lockup clutch assembly to help that out. And we also have the lockup in order to shift gears. When the torque converter is not locked up, the maximum efficiency can be between 0 to 90% because it's free spinning and no power is being made. So that's usually in like the stalling phase and the acceleration phase. Okay, so in the torque converter, you could also have some fails. I'm going to talk about three. The first fail would be the stator clutch. Now, the stator clutch basically has a one-way clutch in it that allows the stator to spin in one direction. So, if your stator is spinning in both directions, you have a bad stator clutch. You need to get that replaced. The next one is the stall speed increases. If your stall speed increases, that means your impeller spins, but your turbine doesn't, which means that you're not going to get the power you need because you're just going to be stalling the whole entire time. And the last one would be contaminated fluid. Now, the contaminated fluid will cause more slippage. So, if you have more slippage, you will lose more power, and then your torque converter won't be working as efficient as it needs to be. And so, the hydrocoupling process is very important when dealing with the torque converter because each component has a role to play, and if it doesn't work, then your torque converter won't work. And the torque converter is very important in an automatic transmission because it allows your transmission to shift gears. So if you don't have that torque converter, you can't shift your gears. Thank you and have a great day.